Good evening, everyone. As an English teacher for the better part of a decade with a flair for the dramatic, I find myself in a comfortable situation on stage. Much like acting, you must be convincing or no one will ever believe that you are who you pretend to be. See, my students have long been under the impression that I'm just a teacher, a man who comes to school, drinks coffee, lots of coffee, makes literary analysis tolerable, destroys anything written, tells terrible jokes, and yet somehow helps him get through the rigors of high school and breeze through college. You know, just a teacher. Little do they know that I'm on the verge of my biggest role yet, an educational leader. As I transition from the classroom into an administrative role, my goal is to help teachers and students find their voice, their stage, and their moment to shine. 2 summers ago, my wife and I decided it was time to come home to DeLand, leaving behind the safety of a stage where I had earned a leading role. You see, in my previous teaching gig was at a school that struggled to develop and retain consistent faculty, let alone find people that would teach at that school. Leaving that situation and moving to a new situation with higher performing students and higher expectations, I worried if I could once again show the skills that had been so rare. Upon arrival at DeLand High School, it was clear that the talent around me was strong, and it was safe to say that I was experiencing a little stage fright. But I stepped in seamlessly, and I immediately made an impact with my department, my administration, and more importantly, with my students. However, I started to think, how could I use my experiences to shape other aspects of instruction and teacher talent? Because I had seen what happened to teachers without proper support. Opportunity knocked, and it looked a lot like Stetson. A school that had been in the background of my childhood was now at my front door. I still say it was a risky move on their part. But I assumed a new role, the student. I say a new role because when I was in high school, I wasn't a high school student, I was a baseball player. When I got to college, I was so happy to be there that at times I forgot why I was there. However, being that risk taker that I've always been, I kind of thought, hey, I can act like a graduate student. And plus, going back to college means I get to be Greek again, right? So here is my first day of grad school checklist. Dress professionally, because my educational law professor and advisor, Dr. Glenn Epley, says that it's not a day at the beach. Pack backpack with as many school supplies as I can carry. Fill my biggest Yeti cup with coffee. Have my wife take an obligatory first day of school picture. Recite lines to Billy Madison in my head. And walk to Stetson, in the mid-May Florida morning heat. Because, you know, exercise. So I get to the library for orientation, and it's 7:45 a.m. I am 45 minutes early, and after my refreshing morning stroll, I am drenched in sweat. And it's quite possible I've earned a new role, the stinky kid in class. Now let's go make friends, right? Thankfully, my cohort accepted me for who I am and not how I smelled. Without their weekly support and endless supply of laughter, compassion, and donuts, I would have never made it on this stage. Also, I've been blessed to learn from some of the greatest educational minds that Stetson University has to offer. More importantly, I grew from the influences of educational professors like Dr. Rajni Shankar Brown and Dr. Joyce Mundy, who taught me about the importance of how an educational leader works with human capital, and there's nothing more precious than that. Also, I need to give a Ric Flair style woo to my finance professor, Dr. Lou Sabina, who helped an English major make sense of a finance course. Truly, MBA students, truly, there are only 2 words that kept me from going a different route in college that would have put me on a track for an MBA. Those 2 words, financial accounting. After a year with this incredibly talented group of educational leaders, I realized a few things. My classmates are some of the brightest educational minds I have ever seen. Never have I met a group of people more dedicated to making changes that will impact our children for generations to come. For those of you in the audience that are not in education, just know that the future of education is in capable hands. More importantly, we are coming out of this educational leadership program prepared to be change agents inside of our schools and our communities. We know that everything we do will be scrutinized by the public, our faculty, our students. We will have to act on some of the biggest stages, and it will not be easy. Sometimes we must act fearlessly to defend the rights of an education for a student who may not have a voice. Sometimes we must act compassionately to help a teacher who has lost that fire inside. Sometimes we must act transparently so that the community knows that we are human, but act we must. John Wayne once said that courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyways. Every day will be a challenge. Every day you will have something to prove. Every day you will be in search of that first follower that will validate your efforts and turn you from a lunatic into a leader. Yet do not confuse acting with action. Do not forget that acting will only get people to believe you are going to do great things, but action requires you to show them. When you show those followers who you are, do it honestly and with passion, because if you're going to lead, then lead. Lastly, I must take a moment to be selfish. To my wife, Erica, thank you for being my rock during this whole process. You supported my decision to go back to school, even though you knew me through the rough undergraduate years. It's true. You are my inspiration, and I am forever grateful for all that you do for our family. To my daughters, Evelyn and Amelia could be born any second now. If you do one thing for your father, let it be this: follow your passions and know that everything that I do is for you and your mother. Thank you, and congratulations, Masters Class of 2017.